What if 2026 isn't about chasing more, but about finding right where you are? Finding peace, that is, right where you are. Instead of putting more on your plate, what if you focused on building a sense of inner calm that could carry you through anything? What if the life change that you desire begins with growth on the inside? I know that is a lot of what ifs, but we're going to address those what ifs in just one moment. Hello there. Welcome to Stress Talk Live. This is the place where we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management and solution focused self care with a touch of grateful living. I'm Marcyline Bailey and I am your host today. I'm so glad that you joined me. We are talking about today 4 mindfulness habits that will change your 2026. I hope that you will gain some information that will help you as we roll into a new year. This has been difficult for a number of people this year. 2025 has been kind of hard for people. And even towards the end of this year, I know of people who have lost loved ones. So I want to share and say to those of you who have lost loved ones that our hearts are with you. This is a difficult time of year to lose someone you care about, but our hearts are with you, genuinely with you. So I'm not going to belabor things because hey, it is the holiday season, and you all may be doing stuff, right? I know I've been chilling this around chilling because I don't know, just chilling. I've simplified things. It's really good. It feels really good to simplify the things that I was doing over the holidays. Simple, did what I wanted to do, enjoyed myself, enjoyed my family and friends. We had a game night last night and it was the bomb. Let me tell you, people, we played Pictionary where you have to draw and people had to guess the answers what and we it was raucous. It was a lot of fun. So but won't belabor things. Let's talk about the 4 mindfulness habits that will change your 2026. Before I get into that, the habits themselves, I want to talk about, I want to share with you, I got to move some things over so I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, here we go. Okay, that works. Okay, so let's talk about the 4 mindfulness habits. But before, I always like to establish a baseline, right? I want to give you some foundations for why I'm talking about this and how it can benefit. So, when I'm talking about the mindfulness habits, I'm talking about it because, when we go into a new year, we're always talking about new year, new me. We set resolutions, right? And we talk about, hey, I'm going to lose weight. Hey, I'm going to start walking. Hey, I'm going to change my diet. You know what? I'm going to read 4 books every month. And we're talking about changing ourselves from the outside in, changing the things that are around us, changing how we do things. The reality is, When we're doing that, we're treating happiness and satisfaction like it's a destination. Like we're going on vacation, and once we get to the vacation, everything is going to be fine and wonderful. The thing about it is, when we go on vacation, if we don't pack the things that we need, things don't go well. Or if during our travel, the airline loses our baggage, has that happened to anybody? Then what? It throws a monkey wrench into the plans. The same is with us. When we set New Year's resolutions, or when we go into the new year saying, okay, this is my year to change me, and the things that we're changing are outside of us and not our inward selves, it's like we up the ante, and we have a greater chance of losing things, losing our baggage. This type of approach creates more anxiety. It also disconnects us from, I won't say reality, but what's happening right here and right now. So, what's the solution to this? First of all, we have to recognize that our brain functions on autopilot. Think about it. I talk about this all the time, that when you're driving, let's say you're driving to work or you're taking public transportation to work, a lot of times we're not noticing what's going on outside of us because it's just automatic. We don't think about it. Our brain does this thing where it's like a switch turns on, choop, switch turns on, and it puts us in autopilot where we don't really have to think about the things that we've done over and over and over. How often, I'll give you an example. How often do you think about brushing your teeth in the morning? Do you actually think about the steps it takes to brush your teeth? Like you pick up your toothbrush, you pick up the toothpaste, you may turn the water on, you may rinse your brush, wet the bristles under the water, you turn the water off, and then you squeeze the tube, you put the toothpaste on on your brush, you lift the brush, you put it in your mouth, you start with your front teeth and then you move to the sides. We don't do that. We don't go step by step like that. When we're talking about brushing our teeth, it's autopilot. We just do it without thinking about it. We don't think about it. Because of that, the brain, of course, it just creates these shortcuts for us. So we're not wasting energy, wasting time going through each step. When we were learning to brush our teeth, we had to go through each step so we could remember and we could learn what we needed to do. When we are practicing mindfulness, it it's like we turn that autopilot switch off. Doop. You turn it on, doop. We can turn it off too. Mindfulness brings us into the present moment so that we are paying attention to this exact moment, not jumping ahead to the future and not perseverating or thinking about the past, spending time in the past. We are in the present moment. What mindfulness does is it changes our relationship with our thoughts. We don't cut our thoughts off. It's impossible to stop thinking, and it's impossible to stop thoughts from going through our brain, but it changes how we relate to those thoughts. It enables us to recognize the types of thoughts that we're having, and then in turn change the relationship, how we relate to those thoughts. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, just drop a yes in the comment section for me that it does make sense, so I know that you are following me. So the other thing that mindfulness does is it It helps us to not allow the events of our thought or the thoughts to define us or to control us. I've talked about this also, how we tend to believe something that we hear repeatedly, no matter what it is. If we hear it over and over and over again, we're going to believe it. The same with our thoughts. If we're thinking something repeatedly, we tend to believe it. That's one of the reasons when people are talking about um, writing your goals and repeating your goals as if your goals have been accomplished, it's because your brain believes it. Your brain can't tell the difference between what is real, what is factual, what is actually happening, and what you've just made up. It's not that kind of an instrument. It When it hears something repeatedly, it says, okay, that's the way it is. But we know that thoughts aren't always facts. So I'm talking right now about the outward focus that that we use often to fix our inner selves. And I've talked about the solution, which is mindfulness. And I want to share something about the benefit of mindfulness, okay? Mindfulness is, and let me share this as well. I actually teach, I am certified to teach mindfulness through Dharma Moon. I also have a certification to teach metta through Dharma Moon. So I just wanted to share that with you. Um, so, the benefits, right? The benefits of mindfulness. Research has shown us that mindfulness helps us to cool down our amygdala. And our amygdala is the part of our brain that's back here, it's down here. And a lot of times we refer to it as the primitive part of our brain, because it is that part of our brain that controls our fight or flight mechanism. And we've talked about what fight or flight is. It's the stress response. It's when we feel under threat, the amygdala kicks in and it starts a chain reaction, a physical reaction to whatever that stimulus is. And the idea is I shouldn't say the idea, the objective is to make sure that we, our bodies, ourselves, are safe, that we're not in danger. And anytime we are faced with an actual danger, or anytime we are faced with a perceived danger, the amygdala kicks in and it gets us prepared. We're either going to fight, we're either going to flee, and sometimes we freeze. We can't move. It's like we're paralyzed. But again, it's a physical reaction to an unspecified stimulus. When we practice mindfulness, it cools that down. It changes how we respond to that unspecified stimulus. We also become less reactive. We are less reactive to what people say to us that may cause us harm or make us feel as if we are being harmed. Um, it makes us less reactive to some of the things that we experience. Okay. So the amygdala, which contributes to that, is everything's being here. That's how I'm looking here. I'm looking here. Um, let's Hi, Katie. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Oh, that's so sweet. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for the sentiment. I greatly appreciate it. when we when we're practicing mindfulness, it slows those things down. We're not as reactive. It enables us to create space so that when we're faced with a stimulus, we can create space and we can temper our response if necessary. If necessary, right? That's a very important point because so often we are just reactive. We immediately, we're like a lion. If something happens, we're like, "Rawr," we're ready to jump in there and react. But does not always suit us, especially if we're in an environment that is not that response is not appropriate, like in a workplace or even in your family, in your home. All righty, Katie. Thank you. You take care. Watch the replay, okay? Catch the replay. It's going to be on YouTube. Take good care. So, I'm talking about mindfulness. I've talked about the problem, I've talked about the solution, I've talked about the benefit of mindfulness. Now, I'm going to jump into the 4 habits. Okay? We're going directly to the 4 habits because I don't want to waste time. I want to make sure that you're getting this and I want to make sure I stay on target, okay? So, the first habit is anchoring. And when we anchor, I mentioned this earlier, we are anchoring in the right here and the right now. Basically, what it does is it brings your attention back to what's going on in the present moment. You're not jumping to the future, wondering, okay, so what am I going to eat in 5 minutes? Gee whiz, I have to go to work tomorrow. Darn it, what am I going to wear? It keeps you in the present. It also prevents you from going back to the past. When we go back to the past, there's a connection to depression, especially when we're perseverating or we're thinking constantly about something that has happened in the past. When we're jumping to the future, it's connected to anxiety. We're trying to fix something that has not happened yet. In the past, we're trying to fix something that has happened. So when we are anchoring in the right here and right now, it's bringing our attention to the present moment. Whatever. So, we can also talk about how anchoring grounds us in reality. It grounds us in what's happening in reality. We're not in our imagination, we're not daydreaming, we're not thinking about things that's happened before. We are grounding in what is going on right here and right now. Okay? So, whoo, yeah. Okay. So, the other thing that we want to talk about is um, how we can also use the second thing. I've talked about anchoring. Now, let's talk about non-judgmental observation. I think that is a great thing to talk about right at this moment. When we're talking about non-judgmental observation, we're talking about our thoughts and how we have a commentary going, right? We have thoughts that are going constantly through our brain, but instead of labeling Those, instead of labeling those thoughts, instead of labeling them in a negative way, we just observe them. We observe them and we don't judge them. We don't critique them. We don't label them in a negative way. A lot of times people talk about this. A lot of times people talk about this in the way that, um, like if you're looking at, let's see, if you're looking at the clouds and you know how the clouds are going by, we can just see the clouds and they're moving. They're constantly moving, right? Well, our thoughts, and we could say sometimes we play a little game. Kids play a game that, they can um, co- make the clouds, say the clouds look like an animal or call the clouds something, right? Well, with our thoughts, we can just let them pass by, just like the clouds, right? A lot of times we don't do that because we feel the need to critique them or we feel the need to label them in some way. With non judgmental observation, it gives us an opportunity to notice the pattern of our thoughts, as well as the patterns of our feelings. What type of thoughts do we have? What are we feeling as a result of those thoughts? We can also notice our default feelings as well as our automatic thoughts. What are the first things that come to your mind when you're thinking, right? When something happens, what's the first type of thought that comes to your mind? How do you feel as a result of that? So instead of labeling with negativity, instead of labeling in a judgmental manner, we can just be curious about it. Just like the clouds go through the sky and we're looking at the shape of the clouds, we're looking at the density of the clouds, we're looking at those things, we can also do the same with our thoughts, right? We can be curious about them. We can notice them and just let them pass by. So, I've talked about two habits that are rooted and grounded in mindfulness that we can use to change our 2026. The first is anchoring right here and right now. The second is non judgmental observation. Let's talk about the third. The third is radical self compassion. How novel. Do you know, I tell my clients this all the time that we um, are we're very critical of ourselves. We're very judgmental of ourselves. We critique ourselves with we nitpick ourselves. Why? Because that's just how we are. We want to be better. But we also do it because we compare ourselves to other people and to other situations. We're our own worst critics. And we sometimes feel that if we're tough on ourselves, it motivates us. But that's not necessarily the case. We feel too sometimes that if we're soft, then we can end up being lazy. And that's not necessarily the case either. But it's often how we've been raised or the environment that we've been in. We've learned that we should be tough on ourselves. We've learned that we should be hard and harsh on ourselves because that makes us and helps us to do better. But that's not necessarily true. It isn't necessarily true. Research has shown us that self criticism is linked to anxiety and depression. So we want to change that a bit. I've read a lot of Dr. Kristen Neff's work, and she is an expert in loving kindness. And loving kindness is really a big source of resilience. It helps us to be more resilient, especially when we're facing difficult times and difficult situations. But loving kindness is another self compassion, rather, is basically self kindness, and it's just being gentle with yourself. It's being gentle with yourself. What's wrong with being gentle with yourself? Why shouldn't we be gentle with ourselves? We should. But it also helps us to understand that there's a commonness when it comes to humanity. Everybody has their struggles. Everybody. Their struggles may be different, but everyone struggles with something. And if there's a person who says that they don't, they're lying. They're lying. And oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, but there are times when people are struggling and they try to project their struggles and their self-hatred onto you, onto other people for no reason, because they just don't feel good about themselves. That's very sad though. It is very sad. With self-compassion, we understand that we need to be gentle with ourselves. We also understand that everyone struggles, and so we're not alone. Everybody struggles. When you talk to freshmen, fall semester freshmen, everybody's struggling. Nobody's doing well fall quarter their freshman year. Well, some people are, but they're working hard. They're working their tails off to do so. And that's a struggle in itself. Everyone struggles. When we practice mindfulness, we notice our pain, but we don't get lost in it. So we need to practice self compassion and make it a habit. So let's go to the next one, and that is cultivating loving kindness. So, and some of you know this as metta, but when we are practicing and cultivating loving kindness, we are directing warmth and unconditional goodwill towards ourselves and towards others. And this is not fake emotions. When we do this, we are setting an intention, and with, it's done with intention, and it's done with and in sincerity. It's actually, when we express loving kindness and we cultivate loving kindness, we can move from comparing ourselves to other people, feeling envious, or feeling resentment. Um, and we can build the capacity to express empathy and connection, engage in connection. We can connect with other people. It also, I can share that research shows that when we cultivate loving kindness, um, it increases our positive emotions, it reduces depression, and it actually slows biological aging. So, if for no other reason, if you don't want wrinkles, practice loving, extending, cultivating loving kindness. It can't hurt. I'm sure you're popping pills to try to stay young. Extend some loving kindness. So, here we go. What we've just talked about today, we've talked about 4 mindfulness habits that will change your 2026. I talked about anchoring right here, right now. I talked about non judgmental observation. I talked about radical self compassion. And I talked about cultivating loving kindness. If you want to know more, subscribe to my YouTube channel at ML Bailey Consultants. I actually have for you some quick ways to do this as well as deeper dives. And I'll be sharing those things on my YouTube channel again at ML Bailey Consultants. When you're there, subscribe. If you liked what you heard, please like it. Just hit that thumbs up button and also download your 7-day stress reset guide. It's free and it helps you to lower your stress. That's all for now. I'm so glad that you joined me. I'm Marcyline Bailey. As always, take good care.